What if we told you that there is an island where you can still hear the echoes of the screams of the prisoners, where a real demon lives and where nature seems to come from another planet? It's not a movie, it's Tasmania. Watch this video until the end, because what you are about to discover will leave you speechless. Subscribe to the channel and join us on this uncensored adventure. There are many extraordinary corners that seem torn from another planet. Yet among them all, perhaps none is as fascinating as this island, which locals call Devil's Island, after an enigmatic creature said to live in its deepest jungles. In this new episode of Turismo Senza Limiti, we will take you to discover Tasmania, one of the most impenetrable and enigmatic lands on the planet. A place as beautiful as it is wild, as unique as it is mysterious. Hidden in its often inaccessible landscapes lies a history marked by brutality, imprisonment, and the supernatural. Many of its early inhabitants were actually prisoners, as Tasmania began as one of the most extreme penal colonies in history. Surrounded by a pristine ocean, with deep seas and giant crocodiles, escape was simply impossible. Thousands of women were sent there as prisoners. Many of them were forced to become soldier colonial couples. They were trained to please powerful men in a dark reality that eventually revealed the existence of clandestine networks of brothels, some even underground, where these services were offered in secret. Tasmania, a vast island off the coast of Australia, is covered in wildlife so wild it can sometimes be terrifying. Giant carnivorous plants grow here, trees that seem to bleed when cut down, mountains that look like otherworldly landscapes, and lakes whose colors change as if they were portals to other dimensions. For centuries, its isolation from the rest of the world has held back incredible secrets, enchanting beaches where some people practice nudism, and the legend of the mythical Tasmanian tiger, a predator thought to be extinct, which some say still roams the forests, secretly protected by the government itself. Far south, in the Southern Ocean, on this island time seems to have stood still. A place inhabited by strange creatures found nowhere else on the planet, hidden among prehistoric forests that hold enigmas and wonders yet to be discovered. Tasmania seems like another world. Its isolation over millions of years has allowed its wildlife and landscapes to evolve in unique ways. Its alien appearance is no coincidence. To understand its mystery, you have to have the courage to go where very few have ever gone. Tasmania sits between the icy Antarctica and the scorching Australian continent. Its coasts are lashed by the roaring 40s, fierce winds that crisscross the globe without encountering obstacles between 40 and 50 degrees south latitude. These currents, famous for their destructive force, can reach speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour. Its roar is so distinctive that it gave rise to its name. These winds make navigation difficult, bring Antarctic cold, and throw Tasmania into an unforgiving climate, making life even more difficult for both animals and humans. It was precisely this isolation that pushed the English, a few centuries ago, to send their most dangerous prisoners there. They have transformed Tasmania into the most extreme prison on the planet. A decision that marked the history of this island forever. Millions of years ago, Tasmania was part of the supercontinent Gondwana, along with Africa, South America, and Antarctica. This subsequent isolation was fundamental for the evolution of its fauna and flora without interference. As a result, the island is home to species as rare as they are extraordinary. And as we said, some of its most striking natural jewels are its giant carnivorous plants. In some regions, these botanical wonders reach surprising dimensions. Its mountains seem to come from a dream. In Cradle Mountain Lake St. Clair National Park, rock formations are shaped in impossible ways and shrouded in thick fog. This park is the ideal place to explore the wild essence of the island: crystal clear lakes, ancient forests, and unique creatures such as the famous Tasmanian devil. This small but ferocious marsupial owes its name to its terrifying screeches and aggressive temperament. It is one of the most recognizable symbols of the island. But as we said before, there is another creature that, despite being officially extinct, still fuels myths: the Tasmanian tiger. Also called thylacine, it was a dog-like predator with stripes on its back. Although it was declared extinct in the 1930s, some believe it still lives hidden deep in the forests. The first human inhabitants of Tasmania were the Tasmanian Aborigines, known as the Palawa. They arrived on the island about 6,000 years ago, when sea level separated Tasmania from the Australian continent. Their culture was unique, based on hunting, gathering, and a deep spiritual connection to the land. With the arrival of the English in the early 19th century, everything changed. One of the darkest chapters in the island's history began: the systematic extermination of the indigenous populations. They were displaced, infected by diseases brought by Europeans, killed or forced to work in inhumane conditions. In the 1830s, this process reached its peak. Truganini, considered the last woman of pure Aboriginal blood, died in 1876. With it disappeared a culture that had inhabited the island for millennia. Although some descendants are still struggling to recover their identity, much of the original legacy has been lost forever. In the 19th century, Tasmania was used by the English as a huge prison. Thousands of men were sent to this inhospitable island, even for minor crimes. The conditions were brutal. Cruel punishments, disease, and forced labor to the brink of mental collapse. One of the worst forms of punishment was the prison of silence. Prisoners were not allowed to speak, laugh, or make any sound for years. This absolute isolation drove many to madness. Women suffered too. Many were sent as prisoners and forced to live in close contact with soldiers and settlers. But even worse than prison was trying to escape. The waters surrounding Tasmania are infested with giant crocodiles, and their currents are deadly. For this reason, this penal colony was considered the most brutal in the British Empire. In the shadows of this past, disturbing legends emerge. The most famous is Sarah Island, located in the Macquarie Harbour region. The most dangerous prisoners were locked up there. Its ruins, covered with vegetation, continue to be the scene of inexplicable phenomena, voices, screams, and whispers that seem to come from another time. Tasmania is also known as the Island of Ghosts. His murky past and isolation contribute to this reputation. But it's not all darkness, it's also a natural paradise. Beaches like Wineglass Bay, with their white sand and turquoise waters, are ideal for relaxing. Although nudism is not legal, there are hidden corners where people can enjoy the sea without clothes, in harmony with nature. Other magical places are Dove Lake, which changes color depending on the light, Lake Petter, with its rare pink sand, or the imposing pillars known as the 12 Apostles, a rock formation carved over millions of years. To reach Tasmania from Europe or America, the most common route is to fly into Australia and take a domestic flight to Hobart or Launceston. These flights typically last 20 to 22 hours, with 1 or 2 stopovers. Prices vary, but booking in advance can be a good option. The visa to enter Australia also covers Tasmania. It is valid for 3 to 6 months and can be easily applied for online. The cost of living in Tasmania is lower than in cities like Sydney or Melbourne. Eating out is affordable and many outdoor activities are free. The best way to get around the island is by car, as many natural wonders are far from the cities. Renting a car is convenient and allows you to freely explore places such as Freycinet National Park or the famous Wineglass Bay. Discovering Tasmania is an unforgettable experience. Its secrets, its landscapes and its mysteries make it one of the most fascinating destinations on the planet. And as long as there are explorers willing to venture into its forests, the island will continue to reveal new stories.